Hi everyone, my name is Protima Rodriguez and I'm the founder of TrueBay India. TrueBay is India's first Indian-owned, homegrown Ashtanga Yoga premium yoga workshop, retreat and workshop organizer bringing top international Ashtanga Yoga teachers to India since January 2019. Welcome to episode 11 of Conversations Beyond Asanas with Mark Roberts. Mark Roberts went to his first yoga class with his mother in 1997 at the age of 22 and was hooked from the first day. In 1998, he started Mysore-style classes with Eileen Hall and Peter Sanson in Sydney. In 1999, Mark made his first trip to Mysore to study from Pattabhi Jois. Till 2005, he was teaching one of the biggest Mysore programs in Australia. In 2005, Mark left Sydney and hit the road to enhance his life experiences and his life's purpose. A part of that journey was to travel the world and to go deeper into his love of yoga, surfing, teaching, and music, and in doing so, find the thread that connects them all. He has been teaching workshops, retreats, and has been working as a guest teacher internationally since 2005. Mark has practiced and studied with the top teachers in the world like Richard Freeman, Matthew Sweeney, Simon Borg, Dana Kinsberg, Manju Joyce, Rolf, to name just a few, and continued making annual trips to Mysore to study with Sharat Joyce. He is one of the few people to be certified to teach Ashtanga by KPJ. In 2015, Mark began to explore other movement practices with movement masters like Ido Portal, Yuval, and Miguel. Mark's open approach to movement and body types, straightforward style of teaching, in-depth knowledge of anatomy, physiology, coupled with a couple of dad jokes thrown in for good measure, makes him a truly cherished teacher. Mark's Instagram has captions under each post which need to be published in a yoga book. It is like a daily diary on his physical and spiritual journey with observations and personal transformations. Mark is constantly pushing the envelope with respect to having conversations for change and doesn't hesitate on calling out problematic behavior and actions of the yoga community at large. His communication with his followers is deep-rooted in open discussion, empathy, and inquiry. Mark is an Indian son-in-law, or damad as we say in India. He is married to Deepika Mehta, a celebrity Indian authorized Ashtanga teacher, and together they have a seven-month baby, Devi Tara Mehta Roberts. They are currently living in India till the time they can go back to their home in Bali, where they teach Ashtanga Yoga and movement intensive. I am truly honored, excited to welcome Mark Roberts on Conversations Beyond Asanas. Please allow me a moment while I add Mark onto the live. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Pratima.
Good to see you.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
I hope I had all my facts right.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it you took from my website, I think. Yeah.
So I want to.
Very nice.
It's good to see you. Not upside down for a change.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I'm going to jump right in.
Yeah.
So
I can go upside down if you want.
I think we see that all the time.
We can do the whole thing. I can be in a handstand. I don't have that much time to train now, so maybe I can do a training while we do the live.
60 minutes of hand balancing.
Yes.
So I want to start right. I know you've been doing a lot of podcasts and interviews of late, and I'm gonna bother you by asking you once again. Let's go back to the beginning and tell me a bit about your childhood, about your family, what it was growing up in a family rooted in faith, and where was that where did the conflict in terms of your religion started, and then that led to the quest of your spiritual journey to yoga?
So actually I remember like when I was 3 or 4 years old, having these like very like startling realizations about the fact that that I was mortal. I don't know how that happened, but just as a very young kid, I just remember having these strong feelings of that the universe had existed for eternity before I came, and then after I was going to leave, it would continue without me. And I remember I used to get very scared, but then I would just think to myself, it's okay. By the time I'm like 80 or 90, I would have, accepted the fact, or I would have, come to some understanding of it. So I could always just kind of put it to the back burner. But that feeling had come to me throughout my life, especially in Shavasana. Like I'd be lying in Shavasana and suddenly I would just kind of get hit by that feeling of, the death is going to come one day. And, I've always used that as my motivation to both let go of any drama I'm having with the people that I love, or even people that I don't love, like my people I consider, I'm having problems with. I just think, okay, it's just time to drop it because life's too short. And then also just to make the most of every day and to just go for it, try to reach all my goals and live my dreams, basically. But so that was like the motivating force throughout my childhood and my youth. And I would look around and I just see the way that society was structured, and it didn't really make any sense to me. I know it's very cliche, but just the whole idea of just going to school, then to university, getting an apartment, getting a car, getting a house, getting married, having kids, settling down, and then not really enjoying life until retirement. That was always, the mentality, at least in Australia, is like it's in retirements when you can finally enjoy yourself, and that didn't make any sense to me. I wanted to enjoy my life now. And so that kind of put me at odds. I was always getting in trouble at school. Even though I was pretty good at school in my studies, I would still get in trouble. And I know you're Christian, right?
I'm Catholic too.
You're Catholic, yeah. So I grew up as Catholic, and I went to a Catholic boys' school, very strict. And I remember in speech class, the teacher coming in telling us, I think it must have been about 12 years old at the time, and the teacher telling us, if my daughter brought home a boy who couldn't speak English properly, I wouldn't allow her to see him. And I was shocked. I said, but miss, that's not a very Christian attitude, is it? And I got in so much trouble. I got sent out of the class. And back in those days, we had corporal punishment. So they had these leather straps, and I got caned. So that was kind of my experience with the Jesuits and the Catholic schooling system. So I ended up rebelling against that, and they kicked me out. So by the time when I was 13, actually, if you read my report card of when I was 13, you can ask my mother. The report card they sent to my parents was, Mark is very disturbed. You should take him to see a psychiatrist. At that time, and my parents were so angry that they could say that, So like in those days, there was not much support for kids. It was like the kid, needed to be put in line. There was no like thinking about trying to understand where children are coming from, and you certainly couldn't challenge. But see, the funny thing is that actually my first experience with challenging teachers was when I was 5 or 6, and we were learning to read the time, and this was in a chronological clock, analog clock, not digital, analog, and I couldn't tell the time. I couldn't understand the time with the hands, and the teacher asked me, what's the time? What does it say? And I couldn't say it, and she said so you're not as smart as you think you are you, Mark? And it really, I got so upset, and I just said, shut up, you bitch. I was only 5. And she chased me around the classroom. I was running. She chased me. Eventually, they caught me and they took me out into the hallway, pulled my pants down, and spanked me. And again, you know, so that was a big thing. And I don't know, I guess when sometimes I look back even on who I am today, and I realize that a lot of that stuff shaped who I am, because I guess I felt like I had to prove myself that I was good enough. And so a lot of who I am is trying to be the best at things. There's probably a deep, you know, part of that conditioning is the fact that at school I was getting in trouble and teachers were telling me that I would never amount to anything. You know, that was the message I got, that I would never amount to anything. And so I've been trying to prove them wrong. But that's continued into my yoga life as well. And that's a funny thing too for me, especially coming into Ashtanga, is because I was always a rebel. And then I came into Ashtanga, and
so
it's
from
like
a Catholic rebel, you went on to become
yoga rebel.
You went on to become a yoga rebel.
Exactly, and like Ashtanga is like the most dogmatic, rigid system. You know, it's like it's full of all this, like these, you know, archaic rules, and you know, at a certain point, I had to rebel against that as well.
So tell
and
me,
that's fine.
You
know, one of my mentors, he says all the time, he says, you have to be a rebel to be free.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To a certain degree, obviously, we still need to, you know what I mean.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you know, you've also spoken about your fear of death, in addition to existential crisis that you felt at the age of 3. This, you know, whatever it's called, thanatophobia or something to that effect. Do you feel a lot of that came because of the religious conflict that you had growing up? Or did you have a death experience? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I think that couldn't have come from any religion, because I was too young. Like I wouldn't have had any real concept of religion and the church at that time. Yeah. So it's just something I was born with. Okay.
And do you feel that because of the fear of death that you've had, a lot of your movement practices are based on, you know, trying to increase the longevity of your life, and so therefore you focus on the physical aspect of the practice? Would that
Not
be
really.
A correct statement?
No, I mean, that's a good question, and that's a lot of the yoga, like the Hatha Yoga, that was one of the purposes traditionally for the ancient, you know, yogis, was trying to beat death, you know, to try to extend life. But that's not why I'm doing it. I think for me, it's more that other idea of like, okay, death's coming, so let's seize the day, carpe diem, you know, make the most of it. And these are like, I've been gifted with some talents, so I want to make the most of them while I have that opportunity. You know?
Yeah, you are seriously talented with your, you know, you've got multiple passions and skill sets, including totally knowing how to use Instagram.
Oh no, I'm not good with Instagram. No way.
I was actually going to come
not
to that
at all.
later.
I'm like behind the times now.
Which is, you know, like, for example, I was going to come to that question later. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But you've got this way of putting these posts, like you'll put a Baba Ramdev or a cartoon character of Modi, and you know it's going to have a lot of outrage coming in. And a conversation that then goes into, you know, what you're trying to get people to talk about. So that is something which you've managed to do consistently. You know, your comment section is loaded with comments, you know, both sides of the aisle on various topics. And I think that's something which very few teachers have managed to game, so to speak.
I think, I mean, that one was in particular because there was one woman who tried to like pressure me to, you know, not mention anything about Baba Ramdev. And I, you know, like that kind of got me a bit fired up, you know, because like I'm just, this whole cancel culture thing, I don't agree with, you know, like even if I don't think that, you know, I don't agree with everything Baba Ramdev does, but in terms of his contribution to yoga in India, he's definitely been very influential. And that was my point. And somebody was saying, by me merely mentioning him, that means that I condone all of his whatever homophobic statements and this, that, and anti-Islamic statements and so on, which I don't condone those at all. But does that mean that I can't mention that he has made a great contribution to yoga in India? So that was why I again posted something about that, to kind of push back a little bit. But in the end, it becomes a bit of a headache, to be honest, because then, okay, yeah, there's a lot of people that agree and can understand where I'm coming from, but there's a certain amount of people who don't agree, and then they want to like fight. And I don't know how people get into these very intense debates on Instagram, because you really do, you lose sleep over it.
I agree.
You know, it's not, it's really, it's not worth it, especially when, you know, we've got a kid and it's much more important matters to be focusing on.
Sleep is of premium.
Yes, exactly.
So I want to come back again to, you know, from whatever I've seen on Instagram that you've posted of your mom and dad, they seem to be really, like, your mom seems to be this fun, creative, somebody who's got so much of joy. And she seems to have contributed a lot in terms of, you know, whether it was giving you the artist way or taking you to your first yoga class. So can you talk about how, you know, your dad's a lawyer, if I got my research right. So how was it in terms of, you know, your movement to yoga, and, you know, obviously different from what they would have expected you to do with your career?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even up until I think 2008 or 9, my dad would still give me like Christmas cards or birthday cards saying, it's great to see you happy, son, and I hope you find your true vocation in life. So it took him about 10 years until he realized that I'd already found my vocation.
And now they've
you know, because especially in those days, like when I started looking into teaching or practicing yoga, there was no like financial prospects, you know, like there were some teachers making some money, but in general, it was not like something you went into thinking that you were going to be able to make a career out of it. It was more something to do on the side. And so my dad was just worried, you know, about my future and about whether I would be financially secure or not. But my mum didn't ever have, you know, she doesn't think like that. So yeah, she's always been more of my like spiritual, I would say, soulmate in that sense. Like we talk about religion and God and spirituality and that kind of thing. And so she was the one who got me into meditation and yoga. And so that continues to this day. She's like still learning. She was the one, like you said, got me into the artist way. And, you know, she's into her Tai Chi and Pilates, dancing, art. Yeah, so I get that creative side I get from my mom. And then my dad, he's a lawyer. He's one of Australia's top lawyers. And he was very successful in sports. He represented Australia in rowing, squash. He was New South Wales champion in squash. He was Australian captain at the World Games. So I get that the sport and athletic side, and that commitment and dedication and discipline, all of that I get from my dad. I mean, my mum has that too, but I get that side. So it's kind of a mix between the two. Yeah.
So, you know, you went for your first yoga. Your mom took you for your first yoga class. Uh,
Yes, that's right.
how, I mean, were you, because you were that rebel teenager in that rabbit hole of drugs and alcohol, is that what prompted her to take you to a yoga class, or what was it that made you want to go as a 21-year-old into a yoga class?
So I'd passed that stage actually. So what happened was, like, I did a lot of drugs and alcohol and everything during my teens. But by the time I was around 20, 21, I realized that it was not who I wanted to be, and I wanted to break free from that. And like I've always been like kind of like drawn to travel. That was my main goal in my life, was just to travel the world. And so as soon as I got that opportunity when I was 21, I went traveling. And in my mind, I was like, this is my chance. I'm going to go, and I don't know when I'm going to come back, but I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm just going to go and have adventures and become a new person, and kind of break away from all my my high school friends, and just change who I am. And so that's what happened. And then I came back. I was 22 when I came back. I'd been away for about 15 months, and I came back, and I had a few books on meditation, but I hadn't been to a yoga class yet. And so then when I came back, my mum, she had been going to this yoga class, so she took me.
So I've covered some part of, I won't focus too much on the, for the paucity of time, because there's so many questions that have come in for you. So you then came to Mysore in 1999 to practice with Patabi Joyce.
Yeah.
Give me your India experience.
That was a crazy experience, because I landed in Delhi, and I had all these crazy ideas as well, right? So like, this is a funny one. I think I had probably long blondish hair before I was going there, and I thought, I don't want to stand out too much, so I cut my hair really short, so then my hair goes darker when it's short. So I thought that I wouldn't stand out so much if I had shorter, darker hair. But obviously, that was not going to work. And in those days, you had the Lonely Planet, was like kind of the traveler's Bible. And so they told you this story of all the scams when you arrive in Delhi, that they're going to try, the taxi driver is going to take you,
Yeah.
and then they're going to take you to some travel agent, and they're going to tell you that the hotel that you booked is closed, and then they're going to like try to rip you off. And so I was ready, right? So I had booked my hotel and everything prior to going, but still I landed in Delhi, and the problem with arriving in India is all the flights arrive at midnight. So it's like dark, and you don't know, it's very disorientating. And in those days, it was even more so, right? So you walk out, and then like all the taxi drivers suddenly start like charging at you. But I had my prepaid taxi ticket. One guy takes it, and then another guy just takes my bags, and then they push me off and take me into a taxi. And then there's like the driver, and then there's his wingman who's like chatting away to me in English, and making conversation. And then after about 10 minutes driving into the night in Delhi, I realized I haven't even told these guys where I'm going. And then I'm like, guys, this is my hotel reservation, I want to go to this place. And then they're like, suddenly their English starts getting really bad, they can't understand what I'm saying. And then they're like, oh, no, first we have to, everything's closed, we first take you to a friend's place. So they take me to their friend's place, and down all these back alleys and everything. And then they took me into this, like, those travel agents in India, which are basically, it's just like there's nothing in them. It's just like a desk in the middle of nowhere, some dark lane. And I just lost it. I just got so angry, and I was yelling and yelling. And the taxi driver kind of got scared. He grabbed me and said, come, I'll take you. And then he took me, and he took me to the hotel I wanted to stay at. But it was April, and it was like 45 degrees in the night.
Yeah. Delhi,
and and in those days, like, you must remember that the electricity would just cut every like hour, or every half an hour the electricity would go. And so I remember staying in this cheap, dodgy hotel where like the pillows and the sheets, everything was so dirty. So I had my own sheet, and then I would just like splash water on myself and then try to lie under the fan. But I didn't get any sleep.
Modern
At
day
five,
air conditioning.
yeah, I think at 6 in the morning, I got onto the street and I was like, I have to get out of here. And I wanted to get the train to Rishikesh. And I was walking on the street in Parganj. I was staying there, and one guy on one of these cycle rickshaws comes past, and he sweet talks me, because like that's, you know, in India, that's, they just know how to make, like, the first time tourists, they know how to just get you. So the next thing, we're having a conversation, and then he gets me to get in, and he takes me to his friend's travel agent to get a bus to Rishikesh. So he's like, okay, I'll get you a first class bus ticket. I was like, okay, great. So I don't know, I must have paid like $50 or something ridiculous,
Yikes.
got fully ripped
Yeah.
off. And he said, okay, your bus leaves tonight at whatever, 6 p.m. So I spent the day in Delhi, and then I went to this bus stand at 6 p.m. and it was absolute mayhem. Like every 5 minutes, the electricity in the city would stop and all the generators in the city would switch on. And then I remember this like cow coming up to me and just like doing a big shit right in front of where I was standing. And then the next thing, this old lady coming and begging, and then I give her some money or something, and then she turns, she slips in the shit, lands in it, and then just gets up and then walks off, and I'm just like, oh my God, where am I? And then the bus arrives, and it's just a local bus. It's not a first class bus, it was a local bus. There were no seats. I had to sleep in the aisle, and there was like, you know, there was shit in the aisle. And I remember one time there was, as we were leaving Delhi, there was just fires burning everywhere, like on the sides of the road. We stopped at one point to pee, like a pee stop. I get off, and I seriously, Deepika doesn't believe me, but it happened. We get off, this old lady gets off the bus, pulls up a sari and squats and starts to pee right on the outside the bus. And I was just like, my God, where the hell have I come? And then I got to Rishikesh, and then everything was cool because I stayed in the ashram there and did yoga and met, you know, other travelers and everything. And then sort of all my adventures started. I went to Shimla, went to Dharamshala, McLeod then I traveled. I mean, I have more and more stories, even if you want to hear all those. But I started then to make my way to Mysore. So I went to Rajasthan by train. I went to Mumbai by train. Mumbai was also full of like tricksters, people trying to rip me off. The milk scam, the milk powder scam in Mumbai, where the women would come up and say, oh, milk powder for my baby. And then, you know, you would buy the milk powder, and then they'd go and sell it back to the shop. So there was all that kind of stuff going on. And then I caught the train from Mumbai to Mysore. And that's when I arrived in Mysore with like no idea what I was doing. Like there was no Mysore community page on Facebook. So I had Eddie's book, The Yoga Mala, with a picture of Pattabhi Jois. And I remember just going up to a rickshaw driver and saying, please take me to this man.
Wow.
And he took me on a wild goose chase all over the place. I mean, I didn't know where we were going, but now I figured out later that we went to Gokulam, and then we ended up coming back to Lakshmipuram and to his house. And then, I met Pattabhi Jois that afternoon, and the rest is history.
So I want to come to you mentioned that in 2004 you had a breakup, and that's when you read The Artist's Way, and you did the work on that, and it brought you to India. And in 2002 you met Deepika in Mysore.
Yeah, that's right. So I was dating a girl in Sydney from 2000 to 2004, And so when I met Deepika in Mysore, I was with my ex-girlfriend at that time. So Deepika and I, we kind of were just there at the same time. We'd met. That was it. Yeah. But that was the first time I saw her.
So what was India like? This is what I want to ask you, because you're a white yoga teacher, and there's a lot of misconception that Indians were doing yoga all the time, and what was the landscape for yoga at the time when you came to India?
So I did mention this in a post recently, how when on that train trip to Mysore, how I had these conversations with people. They were like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "I'm going to learn yoga." And they were like, "Oh yeah, that's very good for your health." And then I was always like, "No, but it's spiritual. This is a spiritual practice." But for them, the people that I met anyway, like when they were talking about yoga and asana, they were just thinking of it as something for maintaining health. Was not seen as part of this kind of tradition of the spiritual emancipation practice. And yeah, I didn't really meet many people practicing yoga. In fact, in Shimla, when I went there, I met this guy Puran, a friend of mine, and he took me trekking and stuff, and I showed him, I was teaching him asana. And
Wow.
So, it was not, I don't think it was that common, but there's a teacher in Mysore now called RJ. When I went to Mysore, he was a little kid. I guess he was like 10 or 12 years old, and he used to sell flowers outside the Shala. And he took me to a asana competition.
Which you
And
posted about.
No, I haven't posted about that one, I don't think.
The
I
one
may
which has,
have.
where okay, that I think that's a different one that you posted, which had Sharat in.
Yeah, no, that was a different one. So this was much earlier. This was around 99. And so RJ took me to the asana competition. And I was so surprised that they would have a competition for asana, yoga asana. But he's like, yeah, it's really common. And that's a big misconception in the West, I think, is that we Westerners think that yoga is not a competition. How could you make yoga a competition? But actually the history of yoga competitions, asana competition in India, I don't know how far it goes back, but it must be at least 100 years or so, these competitions, and it's still common now for the kids, and they have world championships and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, to get back to your point, there was, like in Mysore, for example, there was no Indians practicing. There was like a handful would go in the afternoon to practice with Sharada, with Pattabhi Jois. That was pretty much it. And then there was Deepika, and Mandira, her friend Mandira. They were the first two Indians that I met in Mysore. And then, then later there was Maya and Ira Rao, and then Taran came, and then little by little a few more Indians started to come. I mean, excuse me, forgive me anybody if I forgot who others that were there, but there was not many. So it's really, and the locals, I mean, Sharat used to always joke about that, like, like the locals don't even come to practice. He's like trying to get them to come, but they won't come. So it's changed a lot.
Yeah,
the last 10 years.
Yeah, there's been an explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you were dating someone else, and I'm gonna keep jumping between questions, so please indulge me, Mark. So you were dating someone else, and at some point you landed up in Goa, and there's some Beam Me Up and Ganesh Juice story. Can you tell me that?
Yeah, so that was, there's a bit of a gap between those two events. I broke up with Jenny. That was 2004. Then I had this big, like catharsis breakdown, and then I started the Artist Way, and then beginning of 2005, I was like, okay, now's my time to go travel and to learn more about myself, see the world, go spend more time in India. And so that's when that started. And so it was 2008, after at least one more big heartbreak, probably two or three actually. Then I met, I was at Bean Me Up. I was practicing Rolf, and then I was at Bean Me Up, and I saw this gorgeous, young woman across the cafe. And then I thought, I was just staring at her. And then I realized it was Deepika, that I'd met her in 2002. So then I went and, started chatting with her, and she remembered me. And then, then the next day I took her to the juice bar in Chapora.
Ganesh Juice Bar.
Yes, the famous juice bar.
And you cried because when she asked you a question, or was that really dust in your eye?
That's the story she tells. I don't really remember it so well, but she was asking me about my ex-girlfriend who she had met. She was asking me what had happened and so on, and she says that I started crying, but I think I just got something in my eye, so my eye was watering.
And then whatever y'all would.
But apparently it worked.
Clearly.
Apparently that was the hook that got her.
Game changer.
Yeah.
So I want to get to a lot of it is documented, so I'm not going to ask you the questions that you've been asked a million times. I want to ask you before I come to the Ashtanga related questions, is how has Indian culture, you're married to an Indian, so how have you all complemented each other culturally? I have a couple of questions. Both of you are type A personalities, and so therefore both ambitious, successful, good-looking Ashtanga teachers. And how do you manage conflict? And what does it feel like to be married to another Ashtanga teacher, equally successful, and to someone who's of a different culture?
So it's a funny story about my connection with India, because on that first trip in '99, I've said it before probably, but in Varanasi I had a big breakdown, and I vowed never to come back to India again. I left India and went back to Australia, and I just said I'm never going back, and because it had become too much, like the intensity of traveling in India, being on the road and having all those people trying to like scam you and all that kind of stuff, and then being alone, and it was kind of, I guess I just got homesick. And then so that was like, I'm never going to go back to India. And then actually I've never stopped coming back, and now I'm married to an Indian. My daughter she just got her Indian passport.
Oh, congratulations.
So I'm like connected to India for life, which is beautiful because, I've had, India's been giving me so much. And my relationship has changed to India over the years, and with Deepika, I guess, she can tell you it's not easy living with a type A Ashtangi, like me. And I think it's probably been harder for her than it has been for me in that sense, because, she had her life and her career and had achieved so much in India, but really she had to come to be with me. And a lot of the time she would be kind of living in my, traveling with me, coming and being beside me as I would be teaching and so on. So a lot of people who didn't know about everything that she's done in India would just think, oh, she's just his girlfriend. She's just like deciding. So that's probably been much more challenging for her than it is for me, you know. I don't know. I mean, I've also had to give up a lot, like the fact that I'm here in India for 8 months now instead of we could have gone to Australia. But we decided to come to India just because we thought it was a better decision to be close to her family. So it's it's a compromise, and but I think she's the one who's had to. It's been more difficult for her.
So I'm going to come to the next part, which is, which is your Ashtanga journey. I'm going to ask you about the list. And do you feel that, like, if I've read the story, but I think a lot of the viewers don't know about it. And I'm asking you this not from a point of view of trying to put someone down, but it's more about the next part of the conversation is more about how do we bring about change in the Ashtanga community, and what happened with your experience with the list, and where do you stand now in terms of is there a rapprochement in the offing? Can you pack us through in that part of your journey?
So that was 2017, but actually I'd been taken off the list, I think, in 2016 even, or maybe 2016 I'd been taken off the list because someone had like tattled on me, like had told Sharat that I was teaching other stuff in my workshops. That's the double-edged sword of social media. Like, everyone gets to know what you're doing, right? In the old days, you could kind of just do whatever you wanted, and it was just kind of, it was a bit more hidden. But now everything's out there. So that happened, and then I got put back on. Because, in my mind, like, even if I'm teaching other stuff, it's still all related to the practice, because everything is part of the practice, like, even if I'm teaching something about movement, it's still there. It's going to help people in their practice, if I'm teaching meditation or pranayama or whatever, it's all there to help whatever it is. If we're teaching dancing or whatever, it's there, it's part of the community. And then, as we know, like, and it's always been, I've seen very kind of hypocritical, because or contradictory, it's like on one side, the message coming from Mysore is, it's not just about asana. Don't get so attached to asana. It's not about asana. Yet, if we do anything that's not asana, that's considered bad. So it's like this very mixed message, right? So that's never made any sense to me, and I've always found that quite contradictory or hypocritical. So anyway, I explained that, and I was put back on the list. And then 2017, who knows what this backstory is? We'll never get to know, but that was, when Pattabhi Jois, everything had come out with the Me Too, Karen Rain and Mary Taylor, and that whole Matthew Remski, all that momentum was happening. I'm just guessing, but I feel like some people close to Sharat had told Sharat, now is your time. You have to disassociate yourself from your grandfather's legacy and create your own legacy. And part of that is to get rid of all the teachers that were Pattabhi Jois' students and who are not aligned with what you're teaching. So that was the process in end of 2017, when all the certified teachers got taken off the list. And, I can understand that from his point of view as well. Like, he's his own person now. He doesn't want to live in his grandfather's shadow, and he wants to have students that are dedicated to him. So, I can understand where he's coming from. So I don't have any hard feelings about it, That's just part of the evolution of things, And yeah, I mean, it probably could have been done differently,
For sure.
but you know, that's yeah.
So, you went back and you did explain to him that you were actually teaching the method in the way it was taught to you, but you were having workshops and all of that,
Yeah.
to basically aid to make the practice better, and then you got put back onto the list. But then after that, you just went on to, just disconnecting from, the Mysore community in that sense. And somehow of late the post that you're putting out seems to say that you've somehow come to peace with it, and maybe it was just angry. Is there so much love, and so you were hurt by the delisting process, that you went and did this whole movement and everything else in that space, and maybe now you're feeling different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all just very organic, you know. Um, when I started exploring, movement and discipline. Hey, Max, thanks, brother. Love you, man. So when I started exploring all the, other movement disciplines and so on, it just kind of happened it was not planned. I was not planning to go in another direction. It's just kind of been happening, evolving organically. It's really only now, like looking back, that I can tell you, okay, yeah, 2017 this happened, 2016 this happened. At the time, it was all like just happening as it was, and now it's only, in hindsight, it's starting to make more sense of where it was. But definitely, I was hurt, and I was, like it's been hard for me probably is that feeling judged by my peers in that way, and like, yeah, and and then like not knowing who you can trust also, like that, the people telling on you, going to the boss and telling, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. It's kind of reminded me of being back in school. And like I said, we want to be free, right? So we want to be free of all that stuff. But I feel, it feels like things have changed in the last year or two. It feels like, everyone is becoming more open, I hope. And but obviously there are still problems there, as you know.
So, Mark, I want to ask you, if one word, I mean, I know you've gone and done a lot of your own stuff with respect to the movement practices. But in terms of, there's obviously a lot of what you did, like, a lot of your posts clearly speak about it coming from a place of hurt. A lot of because you'd come to India for 20 years, if I'm correct, and had been really so-called following the rules. And do you feel that there could be some things that could be done which could be better for the Ashtanga community, where you could possibly come back into the fold?
I mean, I think I can still come back. There's I mean, as I don't know if I'm out or if I'm in. Let's see.
But do you want to?
Yeah, I think like Deepak and I still talk about going back to Mysore. I think I'd like to go back and practice again, but in terms of my teaching, I don't like. I want to just be free to teach the way I want to teach. So in that respect, like, I'm not attached to being on a list, like. I think, that part of the evolution of every teacher is that you have to find your own way. So, in fact, that's what every teacher should be aiming for, right? Is to try to bring their students up and beyond them,
Student surpasses the teacher.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the goal. You don't want to have to be student to always be following you for the rest of their lives. But yeah, definitely a big Deepika and I would like to go back to Mysore. We'd love to take Devi Tara there, and Deepika still has a good close relationship with Sharat, and I still consider him to be a great teacher, and he was so he was amazing in that moment of my life from around 2008 till 2016 when I last went. He was very important in my growth and my development. So I always love him and appreciate him for that, So let's see. I don't know what it's like to practice in the new Shala. Let's see. And also, who knows what's going to happen with COVID? This thing doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure. That's I think just upended all our lives altogether.
What's that?
It's upended all our lives altogether.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to ask you, since you mentioned about Deepika, how has it been, where you've been at conflict with Sharat ji, and she has deep reverence and respect for him, for her teacher. How has it been finding commonality over there?
I mean, she's always supported me no matter what. She was the one who got me to go to Mysore to visit him. That was because we were teaching Purple Valley when he took me off the list, 2017, and then so she was messaging. They were messaging each other, and she said, "Okay, we want to come." So we went to Mysore to see him, to talk it out in person instead of just having all this weird thing going on in Facebook. So yeah, she's been great in that respect. She, and I'm very grateful that she has maintained that connection, so it keeps me connected without having to be too much in it.
So I want to ask you, because we've just got like about 5 minutes left.
Okay, I'm wondering, it's getting dark here. Should I turn a light on, or it's okay?
Yeah, I think just one light is good.
Okay, because I'm facing the sun, so it's about to be sunset. One sec.
Sure.
Better?
So much better. Yeah, so much better. So I want to ask you, how has...
This is Indian style, no furniture. We have to sit on the floor.
I'm also sitting on the floor, so...
Yeah. This is, for anybody who's listening, this is the key to Ashtanga practice, if you just sit on the floor all the time, and it's amazed, because especially now with Devi Tara is always on the floor, so we're always on the floor, and basically I'm doing primary series all day long with her, because you're always either in Janushisasana, or you're in a cross leg, or you're in Paschimottanasana, and yeah, it's great. So get rid of your furniture. That's what I did. That was the thing. After my first trip to India, I got rid of all of my furniture, and ever since I've always made it a habit of sitting on the floor.
So how has your life, your relationship, your practice changed with Devi Tara?
So now everything's she's the number one focus. So it's a biggest lesson in just life, and how does life work, and on how does a human work, and we're raising this little human, and who can't do anything for herself. So we're the ones who have to be able to provide everything. And so I've been, learning so much about our humanness, and one of those things is our cycles. Every 90 minutes, basically, she's just going through this: eat, play, sleep, repeat.
Okay. Yeah.
And if So every 90 minutes, basically, she starts getting cranky. So it starts getting intense. So it's like, it's pretty full on, you know. It's like she can just be like playing, and it's like so fun and it's unreal. And then suddenly she's just like getting cranky, and she's got no way to communicate that except by crying and getting up irritated. So we have to try to figure out, what does she want? Does she want food? Does she want to walk? Does she want to be put to sleep? Does she want to play something else? So that's pretty much our day from the moment we wake up until 10 o'clock at night, is trying to understand, like, what does she need. The first few months, I guess, was in a way, even though like the sleep was less at night, the daytime she would sleep more, so I had more time to practice. Whereas now she's like moving so much, she's like, and she's dangerous. She's like pulling stuff over. She's probably going to start walking in the next month. So
Wow.
she's like, we've got to like we can't take our eyes off her for a second. So now it's kind of like down to, for me, 1 hour practice. And that's kind of including warming up and getting moving and whatever. So it's a big difference to what I'm used to. Like, I went from having so much free time, practicing 3 hours, no problem, maybe doing something in the afternoon as well, to now it's like, okay, that's it's just different now. But I'm learning also that I don't need to do so much. You know, I can actually, I probably feel better in a way because I'm not overdoing it. I'm doing less and I feel great. So I'm learning a lot from that. And, you know, it's so worth it. And then also for Deepika and I, it's like making us really work on our relationship to try to figure out how we're going to be the best parents that we can be, you know, because it's so important for her, Devi, to have that environment to grow up in. So it's making us work in that sense on all our stuff, on all our triggers, what makes us get angry with each other. You know, that's probably the big lesson.
That's interesting. My last question is, I want to ask you, what are the changes that you've seen with your, you've seen motherhood, with Deepika, and how it's impacted her life. How has it changed, how you would be as a teacher now, with how women, with their, the bodies, and how, they practice? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, I've got so much like newfound admiration and respect for women now. Like, to see what a woman has to go through, it's unbelievable. And you know, I mean, we used to have, like, we'd be teaching, and women would come with little babies, and they'd arrive like all like tired and everything, but we couldn't relate, we didn't understand, you know. But now it's like we can, we just like, it's just going to be different when we go back to teaching again, when mothers come, you know. So we'll have a lot more empathy and respect and, yeah, admiration. It's
Really
definitely the toughest job in the world.
So on that note, I'm going to, I think we're running out of time, and I don't want to get cut off. And I want to thank.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because it's 60 minutes and Instagram cuts you off. So I would love to chat more. And Mark, you have to do another live with me, because I have like so many questions which have been mailed as well as my own. And I don't think I've covered too much of them. So whenever you're, up for another one, I'd love to do another one with you.
Okay, yeah, I like that. That'd be great.
I really appreciate your time and, answering all of my questions patiently. And thank you for all that you do, with the posting and your contribution to the Ashtanga community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for a great chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.